Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome to High Strangeness. I'm Tony, and this is the place where we talk about all things strange and unexpected in our reality. Today, we're going to do a film review, and I'm excited because I have a returning voice on the show today and a friend, Ron Mason. How are you doing, buddy? How's it going?
I'm doing good. How you doing, brother?
Not too bad. We are taping in January right now, and it's freezing here in Utah. How about there? Cold?
Oh, frost on the windows. I'm bundling up. It's cold going into the warehouses sometimes. Oof, I feel sorry for those guys that are in there all day and all morning.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm at my work office, and it's even cold in there. I'm putting my jacket on. It's like, what the heck?
You got snow?
It's crazy. Yeah, well, not so much, like a couple inches.
Okay.
Like here in the city, or just outside the city, it's been pretty minimal, but it's just like 15, 20 degrees. A lot. It just kind of goes right through you.
Yeah, it's about 33 here. No rain whatsoever, which is fine with me when it's this cold.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, let's get back to the 45 to 50 degree.
I know. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be good stuff. Well, perfect setting, when it's cold, it's a weekend. What do people want to do? They want to sit down, throw a blanket on, watch a good film. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about a UAP UFO film that I kind of liked. And it's called Battle for Disclosure. One of the key people, I don't think he's the one that wrote the film, is Stephen Greer. But I'm not sure. There were two brothers that were actually filming and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But Dr. Stephen Greer, had a pretty big part in this film. So what did you get out of it? Did you think that do you think it's his film? Because it seems kind of like something he would do as well.
It was centered around him. I mean, he was the narrator for sure.
Right.
Yeah, those brothers. I think they were twins.
Yeah, they were twins.
And I've never seen these guys before.
Yeah. I think one other time I've seen them in something, but I think they're behind the scenes all the time doing stuff.
Really good production. Really good production, this one.
Really good. Yeah. So, film movie 2024 is when it came out. So it's not old, folks. 102 minutes long. And you can get it on Amazon Prime. I think it's $5.99 to rent it. So there you go. If you want to watch it, very easy to get. Well, one of the things I thought was interesting, Ben Rich of Lockheed Skunk Works says there are two types of UFOs. There's the ones we built and the ones they built. Whoa. Right? He's saying something there like he knows something. What do you think about that? Do you think we have found a way to get technology or to back engineer something to the point where we can do some of this anti-gravity stuff?
Well, I've always thought that most of these sightings we're seeing are military craft.
Yeah.
I thought the difference may have been on the few that we see that we can't be explained, that are just so far out there that that might be the few actual unexplainable sightings. But I think most of these we're seeing are our technology, where we got it, whether it was reverse engineered or we just had a breakthrough like when we split the atom. I don't know, but I've come to the conclusion that most of these are military craft. So yeah, I do believe we could, anti-gravity. Didn't they say we were doing that like in the 50s?
Yeah, in fact, that's kind of Stephen Greer's whole thing, right? Like he's been talking for a long time, really saying that the United States and maybe some global dark group has the ability to do this and has it since the 50s, like you're saying, that they can do these things, they have these capabilities, and he's upset about it because he feels like it takes away technology that can help the world. Mm-hmm. So we're really much more advanced than what what we think we are. But because of money and other interests, they're keeping that stuff quiet. Now that's understandable for the military or those types of capabilities, but power-wise, like to be able to have power, to pull power from the air or the ether, that's where he has a problem with it. And I think I agree with that, wouldn't you, if that's true?
Oh yeah, I think it's a shame that our militaries, for not just ours, Russia, China, whoever, are so paranoid. They spend all this money, all these billions of unlimited resources on defense, on technology, the Cold Wars. Imagine what could have been done for all of mankind.
Yes.
Had they not been focused on beating an enemy, or or making sure that they're first in the space race, and it just goes on and on. It's unfortunate that that's their priority.
Yeah, these unsanctioned illegal operations is kind of what he calls them. To be able to keep the fuel and energy capabilities away from parts of the world, it definitely isn't a loving our brother and sister kind of a thing, right? Because we've got folks in parts of this world that are living in pretty difficult situations, and yet if we can help, it would be great if we could, but it seems like no.
Yeah, we got people. I just saw a picture the other day of these poor kids. I don't know if it was Sudan or somewhere. These little boys, they couldn't be more than 3, 4, 5 years old. Rib cages. I mean, starving to death, and we're doing nothing.
Right.
We're building
It's
weapons.
terrible.
We're competing with each other to be dominant instead of sharing this planet with love and compassion for everybody.
Right.
It's sad.
I agree. Well, and it's interesting because in the film, he takes that whole concept of these unsanctioned illegal operations in dark groups and really kind of puts out there that really they're controlling things. What we experience in the space of UAP and stuff like that, that there's more to the story. They don't really want us to know. But they are doing certain things to kind of minimize the seriousness of what's out there. They talked in the film about in the 1950s that there was a push likely to Disney and other movie and film industries to kind of make UFOs a kind of a laughing thing, kind of a, oh, it's a joke, it's cute, And he kind of believes that was done on purpose to really keep it a laughable subject, right? Do you remember when they talk about tabloids? There was a guy on the film named Bill Graham. He talks about tabloids. He worked in, I think it was the National Enquirer in 1981. And I kind of laughed a little bit because I remember back in the film, the Men in Black, do you remember with Will Smith?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was that film where they would open up the tabloids to get the real news.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Well, he kind of suggests that when he got on there, he thought it was a joke with some of this too, but when he did some investigation with some of the stories, there was a lot of reality to the story. And he was like, wait a minute, this is on the tabloids, but this person had experienced something and had burns on his body.
Mm-hmm.
This is real.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I thought it was interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
I thought it was interesting. The founder of the magazine was his godfather was actually a real godfather.
Yeah.
From the American mob.
That's crazy.
It is.
Yeah. And he, I think, they talk about it in the film, worked in the CIA for a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
And you've heard stories that Kennedy's assassination was a combination. Like the mafia and the CIA worked hand in hand with that. I mean, that's. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but you've heard those stories.
Oh yeah. What I personally believe, and hopefully we don't get attacked by this.
Oh.
But I think CIA is a pretty bad organization. Not bad, cool, bad like evil.
I agree.
They intervene and interfere all over the world, and lots of evidence that that's happened here in the United States as well.
Yes, I agree.
So, what do you think that tabloids were a form of psyop to the public? Maybe. It
Possibly.
kind of suggests that, maybe.
Well, with the founders, history working with the CIA. How do we? I mean, it's even possible that this was something that was planned while he worked for the CIA because of his resources, the money from his, the mob money. I don't know where he got his money. I'm not going to say.
Yeah.
Maybe this was an idea that was, birthed while he worked in the CIA. You never know. It's
Right.
very, very possible. I wouldn't put it past him.
Folks, there you go. Another seed for a conspiracy theory. But I think there's
Wait a minute.
truth there, right? I mean, potentially.
Possible.
Let's see here. Stephen Greer, I think, even kind of talked in the film a little bit about the corrupt interests controlling information. And there we go, talking about film, tabloids. What else today do we see that seems to be controlled with false information? Media and news, don't you think? So.
Mm-hmm. It's a it's like how we have the military-industrial complex. It seems to be that we have some kind of Hollywood media. I think the media also. I think they all work together. I think it's a network that they may not all work directly together, but I think there's people working with this person that works with this person that moves over here and works with this person, and I think it's some kind of. Yeah, it just seems to be that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's conspiracy.
There's a movie I watched recently. I think it's called Ronald Reagan, and it talks about as he developed from a young man in Hollywood, like how he existed in there, and what he did on his way up to becoming president. And they spent some time talking about this group. The undertone in Hollywood has always been very communist, lots of Russia influence, and CIA too. So, and here we go, a completely separate type of film, but they kind of show you a little bit of that in his past, which I don't know, when you start seeing it from different places, maybe some truth to it.
Yeah, the McCarthy hearings, right?
Yeah.
It was exactly what he was investigating, the influence on Hollywood by communists, and so he went on a mad hunt for communists in the country. And I think, looking back, he was right about a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So why do we bring that up, people? Just because things aren't always what they appear, right? There's some stuff underneath the layers. And because of that, the film talks about whistleblowers and how there needs to be more protections for these folks, because there's a lot of evidence that there is some serious, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but they're being threatened, really, and in some cases hurt, and they're afraid to come out, either for loss of position and job or safety. So they make the case, and I think we're seeing this today, where that they're trying to do more legally to protect whistleblowers and that sort of thing. So
that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. Tim Burchett, right? Everybody knows who he is, maybe. He's one of the biggest people involved in Congress that actually are open to UFO, UAP. And he talks about compartmentalization as he's tried to dig in and find more information about the UAP scenario. And he just feels like the information he's getting is muddied up. The details are bad. And he even will say in some interviews that big money controls the story and that it makes it more difficult to get proof out of that. He kind of says that in the film too. So I thought that was interesting, because in the film they interview several people, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I thought the film did a good job by bringing some pretty cool people into the story as well, don't you think?
Hmm. Yeah, and that Tim Burchett, he seems to be disgusted with the very branch that he works for. He's
Yeah.
a part of, I guess I should say, the elected leaders of our country and the corruption. He's not very happy with that, and obviously he's caught right in the middle of it because he's actually trying to do something and he's getting stonewalled in so many different areas and just being um, lied to, uh,
Yeah.
misdirected, and he's frustrated. But he's I like him. We've been seeing him a lot. He was
Yeah.
even on Skinwalker Ranch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a dog. He's like he said, I'm a born again Christian. You don't scare me, right?
Yeah.
I like that. That's my cosmic twin right there.
That
Uh,
is right.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's for real.
He's definitely fun.
He
He would be
is.
a fun person to be around, I
He
think.
would. I would love
Yeah.
to have a cup of coffee with that guy.
Yeah. So who else was on the film? There was Billy Carson. Some people know who he is.
Uh,
Right now, he's having some difficulty with some people right now who are making some claims about him, but he's always presented some pretty interesting information about ancient aliens and other things.
mhm.
So he's on the film. Once again, we talked about Tim Burchett. There's a guy named James Goodall who has a military background or aerospace. He was on the movie as well. Michael Schratt. I've seen him in other things, but I can't really remember where I can pinpoint him.
Mhm.
And then Sean Ryan. You know who Sean Ryan is?
Which one was he? Remind me.
He's the guy he was a bald guy sitting there for just one short interview, and he's a special ops guy who worked. He worked something else for security for the country too. But I love him because he's got a great podcast that I listen to all the time.
Okay,
The Sean Ryan Show.
I've never heard it. Yeah, maybe I need to.
You have to check him out. He
Okay.
really dives into a lot of cool stuff. In fact, I think he even interviewed the president or the now president, Trump,
Well,
and within a month or two back. So
wow.
yeah, so he's doing pretty good with that. Okay, whistleblowers on the film. We'll get into the stories in just a minute. But Michael Herrera, Eric Hecker, Stephen Digna, and D.C. Long. You remember Herrera's story? He's the guy who talks about. So he's a Marine. They go out, and he tells the story of where they are at a site, and they are looking. He's looking down into a valley, and he sees something floating behind a tree that clearly is wrong, doesn't belong there. So him and his group decide to go down to check it out. Do you remember that story?
Yes, I do.
That was kind of cool. What did you think about, and in the movie they kind of give you a depiction of the ship. I'll probably put it up here on our screen too. And it's just a drawing for the movie, but it's pretty clear what it is. Wow. What do you say? It was the size of 3 foot? No,
300 feet.
300 feet. Yeah, it's crazy.
Enough for 3 of those helicopters lying side by side by side, right? Is that what he said?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because those are about 30 foot or so each. That was a good story. Imagine being a recon unit going out, stumbling on this, and guess what you find? Other Americans, what seemed to appear to be Americans, and American with American accents, turning their
Yeah.
guns on them.
That's right. Disarming them.
Yes, and disarming them and basically threatening to kill them.
Yeah.
That would
That's
be
crazy.
Yeah, he told that story so well. He's a really well put together guy to be able to, because we've seen some of the other guys who have really been traumatized. And I'm not saying he
Yeah.
hasn't been traumatized, but he appears to be very strong willed. He tells
Yeah.
this story as if it was yesterday.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and he did say it was 20 years ago. Maybe that helped him the time, because you're right. He held it together pretty good. That had to be terrifying.
yeah. I mean, turn around. You think this is it. This is
Yeah.
it. We're gonna die out here. And a thing that grabbed my attention, and tell me what you think about this too. They went out there with no communication devices, no
Which he
comm
even
devices.
said was not normal.
That is not normal. The
Yeah.
communication in the battlefield or wherever you're at is the key to
Key.
survival.
Yeah.
And they didn't give them any. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. That's really weird.
I think they knew they were there. I think they probably didn't expect them to go there and stumbled upon that maybe, but obviously there must have been a reason why they didn't give them any and then of course then they, as soon as they get back, they're dragged into this room. They break into his locker, take the chip out of his camera that I guess he popped out some
Right.
photos. This was obviously, whoever the higher ups were here were not surprised. It
Right.
seems like they knew that this was there. Why else? They would have said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Yeah.
Well, and I think people will want to see this in the film. Like we're sharing this story, but there really is much more to it. I mean, he explains what he feels at the moment there, which is kind of what we're alluding to. He also makes a claim that he thinks they had these canister or these boxes that they were loading people into human trafficking of some sort. Troubling. And
Experimentation.
the film does go into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Greer does, yeah.
So, Michael Herrera, crazy. I think they even mentioned something about genetic experimentation for some of those people. Or I think he thinks that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, so very few of them, most of them probably died, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-mm. And it was poor people. He said, I remember, was it Greer or him that said that? I think it was Greer. Am I getting ahead of us? A little ahead of us?
No. I think you're right.
Greer said that these people were like poor, indigent people who were pretty much given an option.
Right.
Do this or die.
Yeah.
And then they go and they're probably going to
eat.
You want
to get out of here? Come with us.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And then they go and they end up probably dying anyway.
Right.
And a horrible experimentation. That's awful. That's pure evil.
Yeah. Let's hope that's not true.
Yes. I hope not.
Because, for man to sink to that level, it's a dark place. We know the capability is there, but let's just hope it's not happening.
We're all, every single human being is capable of doing incredible evil. I believe that 100%.
Yeah, I do too. Well, I think one of the other whistleblowers, DC Long, his story really, like I could feel his feeling and emotion, and he was a military guy, a sergeant. It says here from 1997 to 2007. And he describes being in a place, and I'm trying to remember now how he got into that facility. But he talks about this long monolithic slab that's floating. Like he's talking many, many tons. Huge thing, higher than a man can stand, super long like a bus, solid rock it looked like, floating. And that he was brought in there because they were passing from one place to another. And he sees this. And he can feel the vibration of whatever's happening there. Thought that was really interesting, that story. He gets into that. Does that remind you of what might have happened in the pyramids?
Exactly.
That might be true.
Yeah. Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ron, have you ever heard of the Coral Castle in Florida?
That's exactly what was on my mind as well.
There you go.
Yeah, where people, they go in there, these rocks, and they would just push, and they would just.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do think, that there's something there that's probably being kept from people, but there's definitely some knowledge there. It was done anciently. It's done with the Coral Castle, Florida. And, we see weird things like music and vibration, and you can see what happens to sand. Gives you patterns. And even some frequencies will even cause things to lift, metal balls and stuff, off the ground. So, yeah, there's something there.
Like you said, it might be a lost technology, or lost.
Yeah.
Maybe that was something that was very well known in that, the time that the pyramids were built. I've seen a few things about documentaries or where people explained how they might have been built, and there's been a couple that made sense. They did
Yeah.
some experiments, and they said, "Oh, I can see how that could happen. It would take a lot of people, but I can see how you might be able to do it." And then there's this theory. I remember the Coral Reef, the whatever that place is called in Florida,
Coral Castle.
the Coral Castle, where people said that they interviewed that they had seen him moving things without any equipment, huge, I guess you can call them on a lot more smaller scale, monolithic stones, without any.
And that gentleman, he was like 100 pounds, 5'5", something like that.
Yeah. He didn't have any construction crews there, did he? I mean,
No, he didn't. In fact, there's one story where he has this multi-ton coral slab delivered on this truck, and there's the truck driver and him. And he says, the truck driver goes, how are we going to get this off here? Are we going to have a crane or something? And he says, no, we'll take care of it. And the guy says, well, can I use your restroom? And he goes to use the restroom. Comes back, the slab is off the truck and on the floor. Something's going on.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Who knows?
One of the things with the DC Long whistleblower that really kind of broke through to me is, you remember when he's talking about his father?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was a lot of emotion there, and what happened to his father, that he ties into this experience he had, which apparently they wanted to have him sign a non-disclosure, and he was like, get that out of here, I'm not signing that. Yeah. People will have to watch that.
Yeah. Pure raw emotion. This was very, obviously his father, very personal. And for him to tell the story, that's kind of letting us in, to his, to share that. It was, I'm kind of thankful for him to do that, because it's not easy for a He-Man kind of like himself to make himself vulnerable for the whole world, or anybody ends up watching that. They're going to see him at a very vulnerable moment. Yeah. So I appreciate that about him.
I do too. And he was, military guy, accomplished, big guy too. Like he was put together, right?
I wouldn't want to.
I loved when he said that. I love when he said, "That's my daddy."
Yeah.
For him to say that hurt me. That's my daddy. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. He shed some real tears there. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have Michael Herrera, DC Long, Stephen Digna. Now this is the U.S. Army sergeant at the firing range. Do you remember that story where he's out there working with some people, and there's a couple of Raytheon people that are also with the military but work with Raytheon. They're there with him, and he winds up he's running training sessions, and then he winds up being told to stop immediately, all the firing. And he was like, what's going on? You remember that story? That was pretty interesting.
Is this the one with the boomerang? The drawing of what they felt might have been the same that was seen over Phoenix.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He you can see his it's written all over his face, the stress and the trauma and whatever has caused him to. Yeah, he looked like he's been through it.
Yeah, he definitely was like, what did I see? What was that? Kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Digna. Yeah, but I like the fact that he compared it to the Phoenix Lights, because it makes you wonder. And he said it was huge, like huge.
Yeah, did you remember the Phoenix Lights? Did you ever? I'm sure you've seen the footage of that.
Yeah,
they came on like light one at a time, and they kind of went out one at a time. And some people said it's because it disappeared behind the mountain range, is why you saw the lights go out. Some people, they said they thought they were flares, because that's what. I
Right.
mean, there's been a lot of possible explanations of that. Then there's just people that said that were there, said that went right over them, and it looked
Right.
like it looked like a boomerang type craft, and it was huge. Uh, yeah, this guy, he had the impression that these guys weren't happy with him because he kept looking back, and these guys got in trouble because of him.
Yeah.
Oh no!
I would have a tough time walking away. I would have been like, "Yo, you invited me here.
Yeah,
I'm watching this."
yeah,
Yeah.
that's your problem, not mine.
Right.
Yeah. Hmm.
Interesting story. And then the last guy, this story was more out there, but interesting. Eric Hecker, Navy and contractor with Raytheon. He's at the South Pole Station. He's a member of the fire brigade or safety group. And he talks about what he sees in the South Pole Station. Very few people go down there and see this. But he claims that there's some pretty incredible capabilities down at that site, like controlling weather.
Earthquakes.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Earthquakes and weather. Yeah, he said that there's a communication system down there that is basically air traffic control for space, and that has frequencies and projection capabilities that are also tweaked and used that can change weather patterns and earthquakes, I think, too. Did he say earthquakes too? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. They showed
Yeah.
footage of like earthquake in Turkey or whatever, and and weather and earth, and like HARP, right? HARP was also thought to be a weather
Right.
controlling kind of manipulating technology as well. We know. I mean, I haven't heard about HARP in about 15, 20 years, but
True. Yeah.
I think they could. I think they have abilities to cause. I think they can cause earthquakes. I
Do you
think.
really? Yeah.
I think. I mean, regional. I don't think not on a wide scale, but
Yeah.
if they wanted to, I can see how that could be possible. I don't know what kind of technology it would take to do that, but I can see it in weather as well. I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day about how they take a cloud system, and then they put crystals or something to create rain. I can't remember exactly how he broke it down,
Right.
because this was his story, not mine. And I've thought that that's all these chemtrails. Maybe that's why the chemtrails they spray chemtrails, and maybe they follow that up, or maybe they're actually the crystals or whatever the rain making solution might be in the chemtrail. I don't know. I don't even know if that's what they're doing, but that's a theory.
Yeah. I can see the capability in the atmosphere really easily. The earthquake, that would be interesting to hear the technology, how they do that, like how they would get that to happen. But yeah, that's what Eric Hecker was suggesting, that they have those capabilities. He also mentioned something called quantum entanglement communications, and I'd like to learn more about that. They really didn't dive into that too deeply, but
Yeah. Anything starts with quantum, I'm lost.
I know, right?
Yeah, Quantum Leap. I didn't even like that show.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was cool. They had some pretty good stuff going on here. They had some good interviews, good stories from these whistleblowers. Before we rate this thing, anything else that really impressed you about the film, or that stayed with you as you left watching that film?
Yeah, what he was saying about everything that these groups are doing outside of congressional oversight, everything they're doing is all illegal.
All right.
And so they can't be bound to these. Those are people that are coming forward can't be bound to these non-disclosure agreements uh, because they're illegal to begin with. So there's no clean hands.
Right.
So I think that I really liked hearing that. I hope more people that are in there that want to say something, that are afraid to, because they're violating one of these non-disclosure agreements, that whatever this lawsuit or whatever they're preparing or these attorneys are working on will be able to break that hold that they have on these people, that so when they do come forward, like, they will have protections. And a matter of fact, these people that are holding, at the top of all this, will be held accountable, not the people that are coming forward trying to tell what they know or they've seen or heard. Those are the people that they shouldn't be facing any prosecution or anything, because all they're doing is telling a story and being persecuted by a powerful entity group of people that we don't know who they are, that threaten them with jail, with the destruction of their careers or any future they might have out there, and or even death. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and the crazy thing is, what we want is people that are in some of these organizations to have a conscience. So to say something's not right here, I don't feel good about this, and having the ability to walk away from it. But it does seem like they get locked into this, and you're stuck, man. You're not getting out of this with your life, and it feels like they're put in that weird situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't know what like he's talking about, those colonels and brigadier generals. It's going to take somebody like that, to say enough's enough. Uh, but we don't know what they know. I mean,
Yeah.
really. I mean, maybe they really do know something that we shouldn't know. And I'm not saying that's the way what it is, because unless it's a national security, a real true national security event to where they can't divulge this for that reason, which Greer broke down and says, well, they can't use the national security breach as an excuse because it's an illegal operation to begin with. It's going to take somebody like that to say enough's enough. I'm blowing the whistle on this. I'm we're gonna have to let them in and be transparent here. What do we got to lose at this point? All we're doing is now we can maybe justify more money because we can really show them what's going on and why we need this money. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
convince us.
Yeah. Yeah. Truth, though, like you're saying, till somebody deep in comes out and says, this is it. This is where you can go to see it. It's hard, but crazy.
Yeah.
Well, not a bad film. I liked it. So it is Battle for Disclosure, and hopefully everybody doesn't hear my dogs upstairs flipping out. So let's rate this thing. Did you enjoy the film?
I did. We know you. We've actually had some. We've been doing a lot of good ones lately. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just tempted to go to a 4 again. At least a 3.5, solid
Yeah.
3.75 or 4 even.
Yeah.
It's just they're getting these documentaries are getting more and more informative, and they're well made. This Dr. Greer, I he's the real deal, isn't he?
Seems like it.
He is, and I wanted to say one thing too. I had a bad feeling about Lou Elizondo.
And
it
he
was
seems to be kind of suggesting something about him, doesn't he?
And then that
Stephen Greer, that is.
Yeah. And then the poor guy was at the congressional Gorsh. What was his name?
Grush. Yeah.
Remember we talked before? I thought that he was being fed misinformation.
Yeah.
Didn't we? I mean, did you feel the same way?
I mean, I don't know, but I think it's very possible, right? And he makes a good point in the film about why he thinks that could be the case.
because he had his secondhand information. Everything was secondhand information.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a feeling about that. He, like with Cheryl, my wife, when we were watching this, and I was like, I don't know, man. How does he even know? I mean, he's going in front of Congress, in front of the world, and saying this, and he didn't see any of this himself.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I wish him the best. I hope this doesn't ruin him. I think he meant well. I think he really meant well. So I'll give it about a 4. I'll give it a 4.
Yeah.
Definitely a 4.
I think I'm going to go 3.75.
Yeah.
That's a real thing, right?
It is now.
Really? Yeah. We made it so.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good visuals. Narration was pretty good. Interviews were good. Good points.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a type of viewer you think would best enjoy this?
I think
or maybe where they are in the spectrum of UAP knowledge, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I think people who are in this, constantly, interested in the UFO phenomenon, I keep saying UAP phenomenon, paid attention to the congressional hearings, are familiar with Dr. Greer. I think they'll be very interested in this because this is progression. All this information is progressing, and like we saw that one with Dr. Greer about the CE5 program that he was doing, or not a program but a method
protocol.
Or a protocol or a method, which I am totally against. I highly recommend people don't do that, but I agree with Dr. Greer's approach to getting this out in the open and disclosure.
Yeah.
I don't recommend people purposely trying to meditate and contact whatever ends up getting contact by. I think it's dangerous, but searching for truth and disclosure, I think, is very important, and I'm glad he's dedicated a large portion of his life to doing that.
Yeah, I agree. Before we tie this up, everybody who's listening and is getting to hear Ron on our show knows he comes from a very strong Christian background, and there's a good reason why the CE5 protocol to open the door for something could be problematic. I'd like you to take just a minute, if you're willing, to talk about your feeling on that, because that, on the surface, people might think, hey, this sounds cool, I might try this, but there's a real reason that there should or could be concerns there from the spiritual or religious perspective.
Yeah. As a Christian, we're taught not to get into divination, to not to consort or kind of contact the dead, to conjure, to pray to the dead, for the dead, or to the dead, because when you try to do that, and we've seen plenty of examples. I mean, true stories. The Exorcist is one example of the actual story of people trying to contact, a dead relative, because, for grief or for whatever reason. People getting on Ouija boards and just having terrible experiences and attachments. And there is a real element to that with the CE5, I think. I believe that you can't control what is going to come through that any more than you can control what's going to come through with a seance or with a spirit board, or with even deep meditation. When I, like for me as a Christian, when I meditate on the Lord, I meditate on Him.
Yeah,
I meditate on the God of the Creator of the universe. I know who I'm I know who I'm meditating to. I'm not trying to contact Him. I'm in contact with Him because of my relationship with Him. So, whereas when you go into a spirit board or even CE5, you have no idea.
Right.
you're not sitting down saying, I'm going to get a hold of Beelzebub. It's Beelzebub, that's the devil. I'm not going to get a hold of Billy over there in Neptune. Let's see how he's doing today. And when we saw the one documentary about the CE5, the people who make contact with these, a lot of times it's like some kind of like plasma, um, which means it's metaphysical. It's not a real, and then it just dissipates, and people just automatically just assume that it's an ET.
Right.
Right? I just think it's dangerous, and so coming from where my beliefs, um, I it's demonic, it's dangerous, it's uncontrollable, and I want to discourage people from trying it, just because if you do get a hold, if one of these demons do come through and gets, it's like the IRS. You want them out of your life. As much as you don't want to give them any reason to come into your life and make your life miserable and turn everything upside down and look at all your records. Or if you have children, you don't want the state coming in, child protective services getting involved in your life whatsoever. Same thing with these demons. Don't want to give them any foothold in your life whatsoever, because I've experienced that in my life, and I know they're very destructive, and they won't leave you alone. And
Well, Ron, thank you for sharing that. That's great. I'm glad you shared that, because I think that's important. It can serve as a warning, because there is a lot of people who are claiming that they're having success with CE5. So one might think, hey, let me give this a shot. But think carefully about what you might be opening the door to as your message. And I think that makes sense. I agree with that. So,
and just because it wasn't a negative experience, Satan masquerades as an angel of light. So he may appear, however, he can appear, or even his his homeboys, the demons. They can come at you in a peaceful way, and it's a deception. And like I said, like I always say, I know there's going to be a ton of people. Oh, this guy, here he goes again with this stuff. They're not dangerous. I felt perfectly safe and comfortable. And that may be. I'm not trying to discount your experiences, and I am telling you that based on my experiences with demons, they're very crafty. They have many different forms and many different ways and many different approaches of deception to weed themselves into your lives. And why wouldn't they use this way? Why wouldn't this be another method of opening a door into it? And they know, and demons are anxious, and they can watch you because they're in another dimension where they can observe us. And if they see you, they're fully aware, in my opinion, of this CE5 program, and I think they're jumping for joy that people are trying it. So that's where I stand.
A word of warning. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that once again. And I love your perspective, and I think it's good for people to hear all sides. So thank you on that. And then, I don't know. I think that this was a good film for people to watch, and I've excited to see it. Dr. Greer has provided some good information for a number of years, and some of his claims are further out, but you see a lot of things that are happening moving closer to what he has said for a very long time exists out there. So the question is, what's real, right? So Ron, thanks for being on today. Can't wait to get together with you again for other episodes. And for everybody else out there, check out the film. We think it's worth watching. And once again, on Amazon Prime. And just remember, there's a lot of strange and unexpected in our reality. So always keep your eyes, ears, and minds open. And until next time, stay safe.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.